Okay, movies, past 10. I think this is actually, it's kind of episode 10. It's all over the place.
I don't even know if we have an episode order. This
mean,
has all just been a blur.
Yeah.
This is kind of a sideshow because it's not a wheel episode.
Oh, true. It's a bonus episode. Well, then Spaceman doesn't count, so Mortal Kombat will be our episode 10.
Yeah.
But today we're discussing a man who loves science. He very much loves science, and he loves women. A man who just retired, sort of. Maybe we'll get into that. Director Alex Garland and writer. We're having a full retrospective on his filmography.
For a second there, I thought you were talking about me.
Oh, yeah. I was going to say.
Yeah.
And in the top left, we have our co-host, Carlos, who hates science, and he loves men. He loves religion and loves men.
Those are true facts. I love things.
You love men. In the top right, Carlos is gay. In the top right, we have Matt, our also other host, and me, Morgan. How are you, Matt?
I'm good. Let's get into it.
Yeah, I mean, okay. There's a lot to unpack with Alex Garland. We're discussing his whole career, his writing, his directing, but before we jump into Civil War, because that is the headliner, we're gonna be mainly reviewing Civil War. I do want to get your guys' your history with Alex Garland as a filmographer, like a director, and your general thoughts on him as a whole. And Carlos, let's start with you. Your just general thoughts, basic thoughts. Don't get too much in the weeds on Alex Garland.
Basic thoughts is I'm impressed with what he can do in his movies. I think that at this point he has shown a great deal of range and versatility.
What was his first movie of yours that you ever watched?
The first one's definitely Ex Machina.
Okay. Did you saw Annihilation recently?
Yeah, I watched Annihilation last year for the first time, and I rewatched it for the episode.
I think most people's first movie with him is 28 Days Later, which I believe is the same for you, Matt, right? 28 Days Later is the jumping off point.
I don't watch movies. I don't watch them.
Right.
I'm too busy lifting, so I don't know what you guys are talking about.
The first rule of improv is yes and.
Hey, don't. No,
we're an improv
I'm not
podcast.
Going back to improv.
That's true.
No, I going to an improv class was really truly horrible. But I guess I'm familiar with all of his stuff. I don't know. I guess I've watched a lot of his movies. I didn't realize I had. I guess gravitated towards them. It's not like, I thought about Alex Garland as a person or anything like that. So it's just interesting to me. That's all I can say.
Yeah, you were a huge fan of 28 Days Later at one point in your life, correct?
Okay, but this is like with the zombies trend.
Okay. Yeah, that's fair. Like most people, my first experience was Ex Machina. That movie was huge. Everybody was discussing it at that point. And I think most people, including me, were really happy with it, really enjoyed Ex Machina. More viewing experiences I get a little more lukewarm on. And I saw Annihilation and Man, and I tend to be more lukewarm around there. And, well, the Civil War. I mean, that's changed my feelings about him a little bit. I did not enjoy this movie. How are you guys feeling on Civil War? Because we went and saw it in the theaters today, Matt and I, on the big IMAX. And apparently this movie is shot for IMAX. And I don't know if it was why. There wasn't much to it where I was like, damn, I needed to see this in IMAX.
You know what? No. I completely disagree. Okay, this movie was. I can't say it was bad. It wasn't something I didn't enjoy, but I felt like it was decently shot and needed to be in IMAX. I felt like a lot of the shots were beautiful in that way, and it kind of needed that kind kind of, futuristic look. But this, I feel bad because this movie it's obviously pretty decent. I know it was well done enough, but it was just casted wrong. It was so casted wrong. I'm sorry, but a lot of the characters just felt unnecessary and just along for the ride. It was like this weird road trip vibe with just a bunch of random strangers acting like their family and shit. It's just a strange feeling, especially since these people barely have anything in common other than that they're press, and they all have something stupid about how, oh, this guy, he's the old guy, this guy he's like the drinker and the renegade guy, and this is the PTSD girl, and this is the young gun girl who doesn't have a personality.
Felt very zombie-esque in the 2000s, where it's got to be like four people going through the journey, the scary journey. It's just like the zombie era.
I love how Matthew said it had so many characters and he listed them all in 10 seconds.
Well, no, I didn't say it had so many characters.
You literally did.
I think I misspoke then. Then I never said that it had so many characters.
Well, I think the general point is he's getting at is it's a weird storytelling that they use. It is a road trip movie. They use the road trip as a vehicle to the movie. That's the complaint everyone's having right now about this movie.
Really? Why?
Not that specifically, but the fact that they don't really cover any of the actual war in the movie. It's very vague. People are saying it's not taking a position, which I don't know if I agree with. But it does not get into the world building of it much. It is very much more, in my opinion too, it's kind of more of just like an indie road trip movie with a civil war in the background, and she's learning photography. And the Civil War is the more interesting part to me. These characters from the get-go are unlikable. So every time it's focusing on their emotions and what they're doing, I'm just like, I'm more fascinated. What the fuck's going on in America? Like,
well, yeah, it's like an apocalyptic.
Apocalyptic.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm having an aneurysm right now. Apocalyptic. Apocalyptic.
Just skip it. Just go.
There's too many P's.
Okay. It's like, yeah, it's pretty much just like a road trip movie, but I felt like it was strongly shot in a lot of different ways, and I understand why it was all just a backdrop. It was just meant for the stupid allegory, the vague allegory, and that was basically it. I mean, of course you want more world building, you want more,
it's very interesting
world. You
world.
want to be closer, right? You want to be closer and more involved into the scenes where it's closer to the Civil War and that kind of thing. And that is probably an issue with, I guess, I didn't come in expecting much. I came in expecting maybe some vague political nonsense and then, some story to wrap around it. And that's what I got pretty much. So I didn't really lose.
Carlos, I see you over there wincing to all of our criticisms here, though. So I'm very fascinated to hear.
I'm sure you have many thoughts.
See, unlike us, you watched it as a camera recording instead of IMAX. Oh,
I'm sorry,
Jesus.
I didn't hear you over his coughing.
He's coughing out his lung, but we got to see it at the full big screen. Carlos watched it literally the lowest screen imaginable.
I watched it at the theater too.
You watched it at, as my favorite podcast says, the Costa Rican theater.
The Costa Rican theater.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it was rough. I'm pretty sure the entire time it was zoomed in, so I probably was looking at 70% of the shot. I really realized at the end, so spoiler alert, the end where the Kristen Dunst, I guess is her name, she gets shot and she's laying on the ground.
Spoilers!
I said spoilers.
Spoilers.
Oh, I
said
it. He said it.
Sorry.
But
Fucking idiot.
yeah. So she's laying on the ground, and we're looking at her from the back, and the young girl from the face, and then or wait, yeah. It's like that, and I think you're supposed to see on the ground, and I could like hardly see the young girl's like waist to head.
You know what my favorite part of the
Damn,
theater you saw this
like
movie in?
60% of the whole thing.
You know my favorite
That
part
was
is
the best part, and
No.
that was the best.
um
Like the storming the White House scene.
it's okay. Well, I did want to bring up real quick before we move on. My favorite part of
Well,
the theater.
you haven't heard anything I had to know.
Well, hold on. I did want the Costa Rican theater you saw this in. This was
Mhm.
actually the best part of the movie when you see it in theaters. Here, I'll show
I
you
bet.
guys. When this
Oh.
pops up, this is the best part of the movie. I love
Yep.
when this guy shows up and you're watching in the
Yeah.
theaters.
That's
Yeah,
10 minutes.
yeah, that's-
Just
that's
in the
not
middle
read.
of the movie, he's
I
blending
think
a
it's
money
4 times.
4 times in the movie. Oh my
And
God.
literally, so those are the cutaways. They also do pop-ups over
And
the
the whole
movie
time it's
while
saying
it's playing.
slotslights.net.
No, and it's so funny because it's like, I don't know, I guess famous sports people with like their sports things. So it's like a basketball and a football and something, and then it's just 2 guys with cricket paddles. And I'm like, who the fuck are these cricketers?
Yeah, I mean, so you obviously saw this at the peak of its visual
Peak of
experience.
cinema.
Yeah, theater goes.
This is replacing the silver screen, the Costa Rican theater.
Oh my God. So when you were saying the end, I don't know if I would say that's the best part. No, actually,
Huh.
yeah, I enjoyed that aspect quite a bit. But keep
So-
going with what you were.
I just want to say, Morgan, you said the character is unlikable from the get-go.
Which I get is the point of the movie.
But I don't know why you think they read as that.
Because
Unless I missed something in the beginning.
their actions are well, one, she's cold. Kristen Dunst is the ice queen the whole time. Whatever, I get it. She's
Yeah.
a Worf. I get that aspect. It's like a PTSD thing. She's just
But,
Alex Garland's just using the same aspects if you would have a PTSD male in a movie. But the aspects that bothered me about the characters and like made me not care about their emotional story is just how close up and how nonchalant they were about the photography, which this movie kind of frames as a necessity to their career. And it kind of just explaining what their job is and the negative impact, right, it has on the world, and also the kind of like the nuances of it all. But I don't think if the movie is choosing to be closer to a road trip family film than anything, with the backdrop being Civil War, those actions make me not care about that emotional aspect of their story. I hate them. I want them dead from the first 10 minutes.
I think it's funny. I think no. I have the talking stick. I have the talking stick.
I started
Look,
talking.
Let's go with Matt.
look,
I'm
look.
curious what he has to say. He has ADHD. He'll forget
the
in
thing
2
is
minutes.
The algorithm. No. The allegory. The thing is, they didn't really. They could have reinforced it by having the young gun girl journalist to have her like a boy that's almost slightly sociopathic in a way, who's trying to get like how they had in Nightcrawlers. They could have had something like a younger version of that.
They could have just redone Nightcrawler. They should have just redone it.
This movie is Nightcrawler, though.
This is supposed to be like a war-torn country, and they look pristine. They look pristine the entire movie. They don't look dirty at all throughout the entire movie. And that's one of my main issues, is the fact that this is supposed to be a war movie, and they barely scratch the surface of what a war movie is supposed to be.
But I don't think that is, honestly. I don't think it is supposed to be a war movie. It's just the backdrop is a war.
It's an anti-war movie. That's what they are trying to like do.
America has never had a war on its soil since like the Civil War, right?
Okay,
Or
yeah,
Yeah, that's
yeah.
not. Yeah, it's.
fucking
I mean, Waco.
uh, Americans are not able to begin to imagine what living in a nation at war is like. This country is so big.
Yeah,
It's
okay, but that's
it's
why
like
I
I
wish.
think it's very realistic. I think it is very realistic to how it would be in a civil war.
But there, you think is realistic, really? Hold on, because there's a bunch of aspects when it comes to that I would
It
keep
like
going.
I don't know what's not realistic. A bunch of stores and restaurants and bars and other places are closed. Almost all cities are on edge and people aren't out.
There are no.
Militias are on guard and like there's active firefights um happening.
Okay,
Like
so
fucking
you're
dead
saying
bodies everywhere.
you're
Uh,
saying the war aspects are realistic, but okay, this movie I don't think cares about that at all because you think of there's a point in the movie with the 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 nail painting. He literally says the line to the movie directly to us. There's this guy. He has painted nails, and he's at the Santa Claus thing. He's shooting one of the Proud Boy esque soldiers, and he says, "Do you hear me? It doesn't matter what side I'm on. It's one person trying to kill another." And that's consistent in Alex Garland's works. In 28 Days Later, there's a line that
wait,
says,
wait, I'm sorry.
the
You said it was from like the painted nails guy,
yeah, he
but
says it doesn't matter which
wait,
side we're on because the journalists are asking them.
beginning. I just don't
How is
recognize.
he a Proud
My
Boys
bad.
guy though? How
No,
is he a
not the
Proud
nail
Boys?
painted guy. He's fighting like the Proud Boys esque side because the
Wait,
Southerners, the Jesse Plemons characters are kind of like supposed to be Proud Boy guys, right? I mean, yes, that is the point. That's the point I'm trying
Like,
to make. There is not like a definitive war actually going on. That's not the aspect of the movie at all. It's a civil war is the background here. It's more about the
I don't
movie.
understand, dude. You're like this movie doesn't care about the war. It's not a war movie except for the fact that there's a war going on.
But
I'm like,
but most of the scenes are not relating to the war. It's the characters running into conflict. They're doing dress up at scenes. They're not fighting anyone.
I think
They
I
don't get
think
into the details of the war at all.
Yeah, I think that's why this works for me because I don't like war movies. I think war movies are by and large uninteresting. Like the best part of a war movie is the climax where it's feel good because there's a victory.
I don't think you could consider the climax of this movie necessary. The the climax of this movie, I would not say is feel good.
Yeah, I
It's
wouldn't say this is a war movie. I was talking about war movies.
Oh, okay, I get what you're saying. I mean, yeah, it's a war. It's not very much of a war movie. I think the
Like,
metaphor of the role of journalists in
yeah,
preventing a message is more of what it is.
preventing.
Well, is there an
Dude,
argument that they're
I
all
just feel
preventing?
like you don't like this movie because you hate journalists.
Okay, but are the journalists in the movie framed at all positively? They're 2 feet away watching people burnt alive and tortured, and they're just like, "Yep, I'm taking a photo." Like it's not a
Um,
respectable perspective on them.
I don't know. The burning alive scene in particular is a cutaway, which I don't know. To me, implied it was going on somewhere else in the country.
Yeah, but it's still the main character. I don't think the actions of the movie portray the journalists in this movie positively at all. At the end of the movie, we learn that the little girl becomes desensitized to it when she says at the beginning of the movie, "Would you shoot me dying?" And then Kristen Dunst says, "You don't want that answer." Right? But at the end of
Hmm.
the movie, she ends up wrapping around and doing it herself, which is portraying how she declines in her role when it comes to journalism. Something she Matt, you sent me a map, and it's the same exact map I was showing.
It shows that the Western forces are Texas and California. They say it in the movie as well. That's why I'm pissed off at you. Because you
Okay,
didn't listen to me and you didn't watch the movie.
I did watch the movie. We were in the same theater. Calm down, Jesus
I'm
Christ.
frustrated at it. I'm frustrated because you're framing it in the wrong way.
But we saw okay, misphrased. Sorry, not Western forces. We're talking. Wait, what? I don't think this is. Hold on, let me double check.
That is accurate. They're supposed to make it. That was the intention of the movie itself. They're not trying to portray the politics of a civil war.
That's what I was saying. And you were yelling at me.
Which is why they chose to make it Texas and California working together against a tyrannical government. Carlos, what happened? What happened to him?
I don't know. But what I was saying is there is an ambiguous. You don't think there's an ambiguous Boogaloo Boys right-wing tilt to the Jesse Plemons loyalist faction, which was what I was saying?
I don't think they were loyalists, or I think they intentionally made it ambiguous, but they are still part of like some. It could be anyone, honestly, and I was just framing it in my mind as they are part of the Western forces who are fighting some of these loyalists.
Okay, we got a little off track. The point we're all trying to say is this movie's not a war movie. It's really not, and Carlos was arguing against that, and then he said the same thing. But I don't think the framing of this movie is at all interesting when there is so much world around it that could work. These journalists are. It's watching declines of these characters. Right, Carlos? Would you agree with that? The little girl we watch at the beginning, her decline to her inaction and being like not caring.
Okay, and okay, I'll try to explain my position on why I think this isn't a war movie. First of all, the lights on
war movie.
I think everyone's agreeing it's not a war movie.
Okay, fine. I was just going to make a point. Whatever.
Okay, we were arguing. You can continue, but we were arguing all the same thing.
It's like there's lights on nearly all the buildings and running water and all this weird stuff, but they're supposed to be outside camping and all that kind of stuff. So there's a lot of weird continuity and like non-grittiness to this war thing, and it doesn't really. It would serve more impact if this movie was dirtier, if it looked dirtier, if it was dirtier, if it was more gritty, and it would make more sense as to the progression of the young journalist character becoming so desensitized that they would take that picture of the president dead, with the little, right? At the conclusion of the movie. That would make sense for the allegory and the plot, but they don't do that, and that's why I think it's only mediocre at telling its story.
Yeah, and like I said,
Sorry.
I think the backdrop is way more interesting than the chosen story. It is way more interesting.
That's a fair criticism to have, and I might agree with that even. It does seem very interesting what's unfolding in the background, in the setting of this film.
Yeah, and there's a lot of ambiguity to it. It's the land sort of divided by territory, but there's all sorts of gun battles on the East Coast and safe areas. So there's a lot of ambiguity, and the whole time I want to know what happened and why Pittsburgh looks like that, and I think some of the stuff when they show the people hanging in the car wash, or they show the helicopter crashed on the JCPenney, that stuff loses all impact when they choose to not pursue the background much further, to me. That's what my biggest complaint. Why would I care about a helicopter crashed on a JCPenney if I don't know why it's there, what the world is? The world's just vague as crazy. I don't know who did that, what city, so I think it leaves zero impact to me when I have zero clue what the world is.
Okay, yeah. I finally figured it out, guys.
Okay.
So, I mean, for me, all of those scenes that you talked about, the JCPenney and the guy who tortures them and like intimidates them with the gun, those felt very like organic, and for me they made the world building because it showed how this was the norm. This was how America looks right now. And when they go to a place that is regular and open and people are just out and about, everybody takes note of that and notices how it's different than everywhere else they've been. And so I think it's very clear that this is a country at war. We see like refugees. We see people walking with all of their belongings on the side of the road, whole families.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that I don't mind a character drama with a background, a setting that like has a lot of ambiguity and leaves a lot to question, because the ambiguity works for me. Watching 28 Days Later and watching this, I feel like there's a lot of similarities because there's gunfights and, you know, military people. And
the line, it doesn't matter, it's just people killing people,
yeah,
is said in both
So
movies.
when you said that, I only recognized it from 28 Days Later.
It's said in both. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It's just people killing people. It doesn't matter what side they're on.
Yeah, and so like the first gunfight that they get into, where the guy is in the house, like outside of the carnival,
Mm-hmm.
and the soldiers are just like, the journalist asked them, "So you don't know what side they're on?" And he's like, "What are you, fucking retarded? You don't understand what I'm saying? He has a gun and he's shooting at us.
And we're trying to kill him. That's all that matters." Which I get. Yeah. I get this in a way is Alex Garland's own attempt at 28 Days Later in a weird way, because it is very similar in a lot of...
I don't even think that's what it is. I think it just, like, obviously, like, if someone presents a threat to you, then you're going to defend yourself. It doesn't matter who they are.
And the message at the end is it really doesn't matter. Like,
yeah, it doesn't matter. But what I feel like the messaging is from that exchange in particular is how fragmented everybody is. Like at the end of the movie, where there's the two groups of military dressed people, they are like, it doesn't matter what side you're from, we're just gunning for the president. And that's kind of the for me, that's the message. It's just about division and like anger, violence. It's good.
Okay.
I enjoyed it. I thought it was a really good story.
But when you bring in the relation to the character drama, this is the big complaint for me. The character, it's more about the character drama. Fine. I'm okay with Kristen Dunst's performance as who she is. Her role, I think, performs. She's supposed to be the cold, this is what you become after this long. But the problem is the protagonist, the girl, we compare this to Nightcrawler, and I do think there is similar themes in Nightcrawler of what photography can do to you, especially seeing these violent crimes and becoming desensitized. But the difference between this from Nightcrawler is at the beginning of Nightcrawler, there's a charming performance from Jake Gyllenhaal. I want to see Jake Gyllenhaal devolve. I'm interested in seeing how he devolves. The girl who plays the young girl, she's a wet blanket the whole fucking movie to me. She doesn't start likable, she doesn't start charming, she's bland the whole time, and by the end, why would I care? She's devolved into that, right?
Yeah, I can only blame her. I can't really sympathize with her. I can't really see a progression of her character. I think the only progression in her character was when she said, like, the line, I've never felt more alive in my life, towards the end, and that was it. That was the whole allegory of the movie.
You didn't even say the full line, bro.
Yeah, I didn't say the full line.
What was the second aspect again of the line?
I'm so scared, but I've never been so exhilarated.
No, I've never been so scared in my life, but but I also feel the most alive or whatever.
See, that's where the theme of Nightcrawler plays out. There's an alive
Yeah.
feeling these people feel from it by getting up close and getting the story. And the whole time they are framing it to themselves as they're sending a message back home. That's what she says is her justification in her mind for getting so close, watching these horrific things happen and doing nothing.
Yeah, a lot of the themes are just surface level,
Yeah.
throughout the entire thing. Like revenge towards the end, I guess that was somewhat of a theme, but it kind of really wasn't in a lot of ways. There was also the anti-war theme, but that was also kind of just, it didn't really reach any conclusion or anything like that.
I feel like the anti-war theme is just look how bad war is, because war is
Look how
bad,
brutal it is.
unsurprisingly.
Yes.
It's really
This is a
crazy.
mass grave. There's been a lot of movies with mass graves. It's not as jarring anymore once you've seen like the sixth or seventh movie Mass Grave.
I
Pretty jarring still. I
I
think
would
masks
agree.
are not a good sign. They're not a good signal of the times.
Yes, but I don't think they explored the war at all further to make it more impactful to anti-war themes. I need like I don't. It doesn't need to have a political. Oh, this is Republicans versus Democrats thing. I just want if it's by territory, that's fine. I would prefer that with this story, but I need to know further about the war a little bit. Because she can't carry this movie well enough for me to care solely about that character falling into a pit of mass graves.
There's also the thing that they probably couldn't go into anything super political, otherwise there'd be like a firestorm about this movie. Like if they elaborated more on whatever they said with the Antifa something, I think
Yeah.
And it would be dated in
Yeah,
6 months.
yeah.
It would
Yeah,
already,
pretty much.
if it was just what you said, Antifa, it would be dated the day it
No,
came
he's
out.
bringing up they mention Antifa in the movie. They
Yeah.
Oh yeah, they did once.
So
Yeah,
that
if they go into that kind of stuff, I mean, there would be a firestorm all around the movie itself. It would be taking a
annoying
political
as
stance.
shit. It would be
It would be
tainted.
annoying in a way, yeah. So I don't think they could have done that, even though they probably should have elaborated just a little bit more to give a taste of what this is actually like.
Because she inherently does not carry this movie, so I couldn't care about that character's experience in this. The first time I actually felt emotional impact in this movie, and I felt thrilled or scared. I felt multiple emotions at once. Was the best part of this movie was fucking Jesse Plemons, and he's there for 2 minutes at max, and when he's like, "What American are you?" It's great. He's scary. He terrifies me. My heart was going crazy when he's there.
Yeah, that was a great part.
And the other guy wasn't scary.
What other guy?
The one who had the people chained up.
Well, he was very nonchalant about it. I don't think the point of
Yeah,
that
I
was
wasn't-
to terrify you. I think it's supposed to
Yeah,
show you.
yeah, Sure.
But Jesse Plemons' performance is so uneasing. I mean, we've all seen Breaking Bad. We all think he's possibly the best part of Breaking Bad. He's so good. And he's chilling. He is so intensely chilling in his performance. And I was like, here we go. The movie's starting. Fuck yeah. This is the part I was looking forward to this. And then he dies in 2 minutes. And I'm just screaming internally. I'm like, please, what the fuck? And I understand it's probably a cameo he just agreed to because his wife is in the movie. And I was just disappointed. I didn't know how else to feel about that, but disappointed that he wasn't there further. But
Yeah.
the last act with the invasion of the Western forces into the White House, that worked. The gun, it was shot very well, so that worked for me. Okay, we had a mix-up. I want to know. So was that was California and Texas invading there?
Yeah, that was
Oh,
Western
okay.
forces.
And they had a military base in Charlottesville?
Well, yeah, it wasn't like established military. That was like a staging base, right?
Okay,
so they were advancing onto the dictator. So when you're hearing those audio messages, like they were basically just propaganda, essentially saying, "Don't lose hope." It's kind of like morale boosting, like Zelensky in Ukraine right now, and it's kind of just they're trying to. I think it wasn't ambiguous as to why it was like that. Yeah, it makes sense for the conclusion of the plot itself. But yeah.
So, okay, I'm looking at the map. Jesse Plemons in the movie, he says Colorado and Missouri. That's what I'm fucking talking about. That's the real America, right? That's the loyalist state. So he was on the side of the president who's searching for a third term.
Yeah.
People are saying that I've seen this multiple times. People are saying the president is supplemental for Trump, and I don't see that connection at all. Do you guys at all?
Not really.
For
Other
what?
than
For
like
Trump?
I don't really think it was, and
Mhm.
He's not really
it just
depicted
it just
further than 2
Only
seconds.
that Nick Offerman has the same body type as Trump.
well, he has the same body type as
That's
Biden
it.
as well, and it's supposed to
No,
be
Biden isn't Biden like a skinny tall man?
no.
That's how he looks.
Well,
He looks, decrepit like a skeleton.
Yeah, he
Nick
looks like Slender
Offerman
Man.
is a skinny guy in this movie, right?
Is I don't know. I thought he looked.
We don't even really get a shot of him very like thorough.
Yeah,
where
just
I'm
when
not
he's
the-
dead, pretty
and
much.
he's just like rolling around in almost like fetus position at that point. Yeah, he lost a decent amount of weight for him. Looking at a photo of him. Yeah. So
Yeah, should we move on to Annihilation?
I do
or
want your
something?
because I want your final thoughts
let's move
because
on.
I want to hear what you thought. Like, did you actually
I-
like Civil War, Matt? Because I hated it.
I thought it was
So-
okay, and I thought it was okay because it felt like it was incredibly shot well. I know I'm looking at you. I thought it was incredibly shot well. I didn't like the characters at all. I kind of like the setting, but I just wish it was a little bit more gritty. So it was all right. It was okay in the things that it was doing.
Well,
I'm very surprised because your overall opinion is much more balanced than our arguments we were having.
yeah. Well, because we were getting too much into the details of it. But in general, with Alex Garland, on the build up to Civil War, he kind of semi-announced his retirement from filmmaking. It was kind of vague. He kind of backtracked a little bit. He's like, I meant just kind of a break. And at that point, a lot of people were celebrating. Like, celebrating.
Oh,
What?
A lot of people are very fed up with his works.
Really?
At least on film Twitter. I've seen
right.
all of my friends on Letterboxd are putting 1 star, half a star. They're like,
Buddy.
I'm glad he's retiring. Get the fuck out of here.
buddy, you should show me how to find film Twitter because I just don't see talk about movies.
Okay, I'll send you profiles and shit. But I guess this is where, because a lot of people are saying a decline in his career throughout his movies. So why don't we go through and discuss them a little bit? With
That is true.
yeah,
That
28 Days
well-
Later is probably his peak.
I didn't finish it, so
Okay.
I actually can't say anything. It is very good.
No,
I do.
I disagree. I think Ex Machina is his peak.
I think Ex Machina is his peak as well.
Okay,
I think that is his best.
We'll get into that Ex Machina in a bit, but 28 Days Later, let's get into the vibes of that movie as a whole. We talked about it a bit vaguely.
Very, very powerful. I think it's a good, I think the best stories, like horror stories, zombie stories particularly, show us how people are the villains more so than any monster is. And just like having to navigate a world that's
Extremely hostile.
new. Yeah, it's hostile. It's everybody's having to figure out their place in it. It's a good way to establish just the feeling of panic survival.
Okay. Yeah.
For the audio listeners, that was a cat jumping on Carlos's camera.
So, I think where this movie differs greatly from 28 Days Later, it has in
Wait, are you
terms
talking
of,
about Civil War?
yes,
Oh.
because that's what that's what we all I think.
Well, Carlos
said it.
disagreed with me, but I was arguing
Where it
they
was
are
like that
very
road
similar.
trip vibe. I think that 28 Days Later had better music and
True.
was a lot more grittier, and it felt more, there was a film grain going out through a lot of the movie itself, and that was intentional in a lot of different places. It was, and when they showed the difference between like the film grain when they were showing like zombies or they're in a dark area or something like that, versus when they're having fun and they get rid of the film grain, it's kind of like they're trying to show like the feelings of the characters in that environment, and they're trying to portray that as a movie itself. And this movie, when you look at Civil War, they kind of show that a little bit sometimes, where they have like those little special shots, especially with the photos, and like they'll have like, if you remember, specifically you, Morgan, if you remember, some of the scenes, they had like that outline towards the ends of the screens on certain shots, where it would kind of like be a little bit blurry-ish, almost like a.
Oh, are you talking about in Civil War?
Like like
where
in Civil War,
there's a
where
sort of
halo
haloistic effect, and it's from Kristen Dunst's perspective the whole time.
So they do that sometimes, but I think that it's more well done in portraying that in a lot of different Alex Garland films, as well as being better in 28 Days Later. If we're comparing the two, because I think that's probably the most comparable comp that you have.
The weakest part of 28 Days Later for me is Alex Garland, because 28 Days Later I think is visually great. It's visually wonderful. And that's because the director, Danny Boyle, behind it, he's one of the greatest digital filmmakers ever. 127 Hours he did Train Spotting, Steve Jobs, 28 Days Later, Slumdog Millionaire. He's a great visual filmmaker, Danny Boyle. And I think the issue with 28 Days Later, the whole time it's wonderful looking, I'm enticed enough by the characters. The issue with 28 Days Later for me in my rewatch was the third act. And it is the same issues I found consistent throughout a lot of Alex Garland's works with the third act, where it's just kind of very radically different, which could be good, it could be bad, but when it comes to the rape aspects, I think that becomes too self-indulgent. It becomes too much, similar to Sunshine, which, Carlos, I know you watched. It was Alex Garland's second movie.
Okay, bro, I don't know. I guess I am a sucker for the third act being radically different. It's so good. I love Alex Garland, honestly.
But I still want to see Sunshine, so when you talk about it, I'm just
I'll let you know. But the third act of 28 Days Later, it's... The zombie threat to me is enough, and once it gets too further into the military soldiers trying to rape the girl and children, it becomes too much, and I'm like, well, I was enticed by the first two aspects of this. I was enticed. This is uninteresting to me. I mean, inherently also in that movie, I did not like the what's her face? Selena? Yeah, I do not like her performance
I wonder why.
Why? Oh, because she's a woman? I thought the daughter was really good. I thought, it's not like a female thing. It's just, I didn't, she was too cocky and too, like, I don't know. There was something about... It was
too cold. The women are supposed to be warm and nurturing.
Well, she's going around with makeup and like specific, like her hairstyled, and she's wearing glittery clothes, and she's like, I'll kill you in a second, and it's like, come on. I was not very fascinated in seeing her do okay, because there was not a lot of humanity to her. But by the end of the movie, that it was too much. I didn't need to see, now there's rapists in the last 30 minutes, and he's got, wasn't needed for me. And it's similar with Sunshine. But Carlos, you have an argument against that? Because you liked the rape aspects. You liked that part of the story, right?
He didn't watch the whole thing.
Wait, what did he say?
We didn't hear him.
Cut out
read
completely.
His lips. Just read his lips.
Yeah. I can't say it aloud on the podcast, but I'm gonna say that
I forgot you
No,
did
no.
not finish
So
it.
I was coming up on that scene. The Christopher Eccleston's character, the
Yeah,
sergeant,
Doctor Who.
just yeah, Doctor Who,
Doctor Who.
just told the guy that he promised the men women.
Yeah.
And I'm like, obviously, this makes sense. This is natural unfolding of things.
Mm-hmm.
And I like where it's going. Like I said, you know, at the end of the day, people are bigger monsters than we expect. But in the same token, you know, people are like the light in this world.
Yeah.
Like we rely on each other, but we also have to
That is a
protect,
fascinating duality.
protect ourselves.
I'm not sure how much you guys have further thoughts on 28 Days Later, so maybe we could discuss Sunshine a little bit. And Matt, you don't have to hear the spoilers.
I can do it really quick.
What yeah, because I do. That's the
Yeah.
main aspect of the Sunshine I want to discuss. The
So
spoilers. So Matt, maybe jump off
Matthew,
for a
watch
sec.
the screen. Matthew, watch the screen. And when we play, which soundboard should we play? The quack.
The
When you see
quack.
the quack, we're done.
Okay. Once you see the
Um.
quack,
So
you love
Pinbacker.
Sunshine.
I loved it. I'm such a sucker for sci-fi. It's like Ex Machina, Sunshine, Arrival. So fucking good. But
Arrival.
shut up. Aliens.
Yeah, Aliens is great.
But anyways, Sunshine Pinbacker. The Pinbacker reveal. I was looking up online because I'm like, who the fuck is Pinbacker? I was trying to think back.
That was the
And
religious
then
guy, correct?
yeah, it's the guy in the end who was in the sunroom and yeah, religious. And so I looked it up and everything was telling me it's the captain of the first Icarus and everything.
Yeah.
And I remembered the scenes of that.
Mm. They even flash
And
images of the crew during the some scenes.
yeah, so I really like the editing of this movie. It like the subliminal messaging slash like background establishment was really good in my opinion. But so the Pinbacker reveal, I was just gonna say, was astounding when
They
the
ruined the movie
computer.
for me.
See, I knew it was either that or like some other stupid thing. But online, at least on the fandom website, it said that reveal is considered one of the best wham moments in cinema.
Oh, really? Was it this like on BuzzFeed listicles?
No, 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 no. On the fan, you know, like how everything has a fandom website now.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah, it was. Yeah, that.
See that's
But
what I mean when I say similar to 28 Days Later. It becomes self-indulgent. I didn't need a religious psycho slasher
oh,
killer to show up. I didn't
yeah,
need that. I was fascinated but enough by the mission that they were already. And then now there is this burnt religious killer who wants them all dead. And I'm like, okay, but why is he there? What is his reasoning? Why did he lose his mind? If you're
that
gonna
is fair. You bring up very valid arguments.
Don't get me wrong, similar to 28 Days Later, this is a Danny Boyle movie, and it blew me away visually, music, editing. It was wonderful. But the story, which seems consistent with Alex Garland's works as I go back, and I'm repeating myself, it's too much. It goes too far. I didn't need that. You continue with... which it was not the case with Civil War. The third act worked better for me in Civil War, but this movie, I was fascinated enough by the first two acts. You don't need that.
Yeah, maybe on rewatch, I would see that those issues that you brought up are more glaring than I took on the first watch. But it was just like such a good twist. I was really, really into it.
I think one movie that handles science versus religious fundamentalism has a surprise twist much better is Contact. You ever seen Contact?
Nah, I'll add it to the top of the list.
It's a Robert Zemeckis flick, and what that movie does well is it elaborates on how the scientist, how her science kind of impacts her perspective on religion. It's not just he's kind of a crazy cook that you would see at a crazy church in southern Texas in Sunshine. But in Contact, I need to know further what connected it. Was it the sun blew him away? He went crazy from the sun or some shit? I don't know. It would have been fascinating to go into that. But
So, I mean, I think it's definitely implied that he went crazy from the sun, because, like, I I I did remember Pinbacker's scene from the first Icarus log where he says that, like, only God should decide when man lives or dies, or some weird shit, but he incorporates God towards the end of what he's saying. And from that point on, it's been like 8 years. I think you
6 years,
can
but yeah.
infer that he's just been going down. And I just thought
If you show a single scene to me of him sitting in the sunroom and talking to someone, which he thought God, I think that works better. That's
yeah.
yeah.
Well, when Kappa goes into the observation bay and observation room, and he sees him sitting there in the sun, and that reveal with his burnt skin and his disfigured body, and the camera effects, which show, like, his figure is a little bit distorted, and there's some other interesting camera effects when he's on screen. But just overall, the whole representation of Pinbacker in the movie is super cool.
Should we let him back in and we could just sort of move on from Sunshine spoilers? We look next in his filmography. Matt is rubbing Vaseline on his face this whole time. I don't know what's going on.
Is that Vaseline?
I don't know. He's got oils or creams. He's just rubbing on himself the whole.
Oh, you see Telegram?
No, I did not see Telegram. What did he say something?
No, I said something.
You thought it was cum lotion. Okay.
I want to be pure.
Pure.
Yeah, that's why it is.
Just like Pinbacker. So next in Alex Garland's filmography is his last solely written credit, Never Let Me Go. Anybody watch that? Because I did not.
I didn't rewatch it, but I've told you, Never Let Me Go is one of my top movies, bro.
Oh, really? Okay. Why don't you
I didn't even know it was him.
Into why you love this movie?
Damn it! It's gonna be spoilers again. I gotta put on.
No. I will do spoiler free.
I gotta put more on.
No,
lotion.
I will say that this probably does also suffer. Now that you've pointed out the Alex Garland problem, the third act problem.
To me, at least.
Yeah, Never Let Me Go might suffer from it a little bit, but it is a very good tragic romance movie. Just the overall setup, it starts from like adolescence and it continues into like adulthood, maybe implied into the 30s. And it's set in the future, and it's a very interesting just like emotional journey, because there's several characters and there's relationships and a lot of time passes.
What is the third act problem?
There's big changes. In the third act, Morgan says there's a radical shift.
Which doesn't bug me necessarily. It's more that it becomes too indulgent with where it's going and message-wise in the third act. It just is I feel like it's a weird message that, like, it's not the interesting aspect of the movie usually, and it's being ham-fisted to you, like nailed.
Wasn't that kind of like story making where you have like teases of what's going to happen or like vague ideas of what's
Well,
going to happen, and then it
you
kind of
didn't
gets
hear.
all
Do you want the spoilers to Sunshine? Because it's
no.
radically different, and it throws the original story out the window.
Yeah, I could also spoil Never Let Me Go. I feel like you have less chances of watching that.
I'm
I
not
was
gonna
gonna
watch
watch
it.
that one soon. I was gonna watch that soon because
Okay.
that one seems cool. I like dystopian novels, so that's.
Yeah, it's dystopian.
Should we move on?
Move on.
To Dredd. Okay, so you like Never Let Me Go. We get
I
to
watched like the first 5 minutes of Dredd and I was super excited, but then I was like, I should definitely try and watch 28 weeks later or 28 days later. And oops.
So Dredd is it's kind of the weirdest spot in his filmmaking. I think I'm the only one who actually has seen this movie. It is it is very loyal to the comics from what I hear. It's a good time. It's very just there's a lot of cool shots, slow-mo shots, and it's Alex Garland's first sort of directorial work. He's credited as a writer, but most of the cast claims now he actually did most of the directing. I'm not sure why or what happened there. But a lot of it is, it's a dystopian future. You guys know with Dredd, the cops are judge cops.
Jury
And executioner.
executioner.
Yeah, and he gets locked in a prison, and it's interesting. It's simple enough. It's just a lot of the action is really shot well to me,
Okay.
and a lot of the basic nuances of it. But this movie, more importantly, is sort of what got this British man, Alex Garland, to get his first directorial movie, full directorial movie, which was sort of through A24, but A24 doesn't do production in the house. Ex Machina, which everybody loves very deeply,
Everybody loves it.
except for me.
You don't seem to be very excited.
You don't seem very excited about any of these movies. You seem to hate this guy.
This rewatch this time around, yeah, I think I may hate his works. None of them really. Annihilation worked enough. Men worked well enough, but Ex Machina was a movie I started to feel lukewarm about the second time. The first time it worked. Second time pacing issues started to hit me and shit. And I don't enjoy it as much at this point.
Yeah, it's because you know what happens. It's almost like Empty Man. If you watch it like a bunch of times, you already know what's going to happen, so it's less.
But that
impactful.
you can still enjoy it. I've seen so many movies many times that I knew. I've seen Blackberry in the past year 5 times alone.
Yeah, but
See,
you know what's going to
Morgan,
happen in Blackberry because of what you know from Blackberry today.
for me, it's very interesting. I've watched Ex Machina probably 5 times since
Same,
2016.
Me too.
And I think each time I find different aspects to like focus in on, and each viewing experience is a little bit different for me. I've really enjoyed it. Just each time.
That's kind of one of the main reasons I think that he should continue directing is the fact that all of his movies that he's directed have been visually very, very intriguing and interesting and very, I don't know, esoteric, I would have to say, because each of them seems beautiful enough to be considered a great movie in and of itself without even thinking about the plot itself.
Well, see, people often argue the biggest issue with Alex Garland is the actual exact opposite of esoteric, that he's way too on the nose. And that's something I feel very deeply with Ex Machina. It's the metaphor of it is way too prominent.
I
and
think
simple.
Ex Machina is widely. I mean, there's a lot of interpretations you could have, but I feel
don't
like
think
there,
Okay,
yeah,
okay.
I feel like there's a negative one, and people have the negative one very commonly.
What is the negative perspective you are discussing?
The negative perspective is that Ava is just a like cold machine that wants to kill people and like be a person but the based and red-pilled perspective is that Ava did trust the main character, but Isaac's cruelty coupled with the fact that the main character did lie to her at a point made her distrust him and leave him. And so it's not so like the AI is bad and killed him or like left him for no reason. It's more like she used rational thought to infer that if he lied to her once, he'd do it again or about more things.
Okay.
Yeah.
See that my complaint is less of those details in itself. Although I've heard this complaint many times from one YouTuber, Monkey Jones, and I agree. It's a little weird when Ava goes from robot. She has huge breasts, and we're a misogyny podcast. We love talking about women's bodies. When she's a robot, she has huge breasts, and then when she puts on a skin suit, her breasts get smaller. What's going on there? That's my biggest
I
detail.
never noticed that.
I never noticed that, but that's a big issue for me.
No.
I would have to agree with that. But I want to bring this into. I feel like this will be long if we just go through every single movie, but I would have to say a lot of his movies seem to be centered around women in a really interesting kind of way.
Well,
They
God
seem
is
to
a
be
woman.
super like centered around like women's issues and that kind of thing, and it just
Women's issues.
Well, hold on. That is the big thing people are complaining about now. So, for a history with him, his grandparents are scientists, and he pretty much openly says. He said, I watched the Lex Friedman show with him on. He says in there he finds science more interesting than art, which instantly I don't want him making movies if that's his perspective. I hate that. But his parents are political cartoonists, which, that's what it comes off to me. Most of his works do similar. It's a little too much. But that's what people complain about recently is because all of his movies are very female-oriented metaphors. But that's not the complaint. Women now, feminists even now, are like, especially with men, and it's both sides of the aisle are getting annoyed because they feel that he portrays femininity only in misery. All of his works are just depict how femininity is horrible. Men is about being
women they be complaining though, right?
But like Ex Machina is a movie about it's a metaphor in between of with the future of AI and robots, comparing it to how men treat women. That's the movie, right? When you see that with the main guy the whole time, he's not really what's the guy the
Isaac.
Someone needs to take this guy to the strip club.
It's Isaac Morgan.
Isaac? No, none of them are named Isaac. I'm looking at the cast.
It's literally what?
You're talking about the Oscar Isaac, the actor?
Oh, is it? No, I thought his name was Isaac in it.
No, his name's Nathan Bateman.
Nathan?
That's the CEO. But I'm talking about the nerd, the programmer he brings in, Caleb. He's brought in, and he's brought in under disguise that he is here to test this robot out, due to his knowledge. And we later reveal it's not actually because of his knowledge. He's not really specialty. And it's implied that it's more because of his issues with relationships with women. So it's about his relationship and how he would treat a discarded object, right? And when you look at that with Ex Machina, that becomes way too common in his works, from my perspective, where all of them are just about, look how badly women can be treated and how horrible it is to be a woman. And it's not wonderful if all four of his movies are metaphors on how much it sucks to be a woman. You got to go further at this point.
I think it's just like, for some reason, I feel like this guy needs to go to a strip club and he needs to talk to the women there because they love doing their job. I'm very serious about that. They love doing their job.
They choose to do that job.
They choose to do that job and they love it. So this guy needs to go to a stripper. He needs to meet like poor goddamn women and talk to them because he has no fucking clue how women actually act. And
Matthew, you
it's
should
because
take some of your
one
own
of his
advice, bro.
one of his parents is a psychologist.
Yeah, his
He's looking
mom.
at it from that perspective. When you have a psychologist, psychologists are not the
The
greatest
brightest.
judges of
Yeah.
character. They're not the greatest people in the world, okay? They dissect how people think. And so
Well, that's the
when
thing. He looks at this from a very hyper mental health oriented way when it comes to femininity and the
this is him
negative
having
issues.
sex. His
It's
movies are him having sex. He's like this is like some Freudian shit right here because he's like basing his art like you know how like musicians they play better when they're thinking about pussy, you know, when they're thinking about sex. They're trying to
That is not true. What
sing a
the
little
fuck?
bit. They sing a little bit better. They
You're
get those
so
high notes a little
stupid,
bit
Is that
bro.
better.
true? Is
You're
that
That is
true?
up your
100% true.
ass.
That
It's
is
not true.
100% true.
It is
They play better when
literally
they're thinking about sex.
research will tell you
Okay,
that
The
it is not
research.
true.
when you flex, do you flex harder near women when you're trying to get women, right?
No.
This is like it's
See,
courtship. It's courtship.
This is
So for him,
misogynistic, chauvinistic nonsense
I'm not
hogwash.
talking.
I don't think it's either of those. I
No,
just
no,
think
no, no.
it's
It is like courtship for him when
I-
he's making these types of movies, and I feel like
I don't know
it's
if it's
just because of his
courtship.
bad
You think he's
upbringing.
trying to get laid from these movies? Is that what you're saying?
Everyone is trying to get laid from everything they make. Okay, everybody.
Whoa!
Yeah, see, this is what I was saying.
Do you not want podcast pussy? I mean, come on.
No, I'm good. I'm good. I don't think I have this same relationship with women. I mean, he has a wife and two children.
Although I think men is more of a balanced allegory because you could frame it in like two different ways. One is very feminist and one is kind of not feminist in a way.
But
I feel like that's something.
If she was just with a man, that wouldn't have happened to her.
No. What I meant was what I meant was in men. He never the guy that's supposed to be threatening her is he never actually touches her. He never does anything bad to her in any sort of way. So it's almost like it's self-inflicted. She's doing like investigation and all this types of she's digging into other people's lives, and this guy he's only doing the same in his own way, but she's intimidated by that. But you could frame it in another way. She's being stalked, and it's all this weird stuff, and it's a balanced allegory in how it's trying to treat itself.
Yeah.
And people did not get that when they watched that.
Whoa.
And that's why it's one of the lower rated movies that he has.
Is it? I think it's
the
isn't
lowest.
it one of the
No, it is the
Oh.
lowest by far. People hate
which is
men.
the highest? 28 Days Later or Sunshine?
Ex Machina.
Oh,
Ex Machina. And I think Annihilation would probably be second in there. And I think
I don't know how
Annihilation-
Civil War is doing quite yet.
it's like 7.5 on IMDb, but that's the only thing I've seen from it.
3.8, so about the same.
Yeah,
But it's gonna go lower. It always goes lower on Letterboxd.
I want to talk about Annihilation though. I think that was the one where I was
Well, before we discuss Annihilation, when you were saying men is easier to connect to, I think the easier to interpret in multiple ways. That's what the consistent issue I experienced with all of his movies. The metaphor is very important when it comes to gender relations, science, technology, killing. It's very prominent to the movie, but it's never very deep. It's very surface level. And I think that's what it is with men. It's very vague and ambiguous and surface level, so it can be interpreted in many ways.
That's what I like. It's like a piece of modern art.
Well, I think men, it works better in that utility, but more specifically, let's keep in order Annihilation, which I used to hate. and it might be
It was better this time.
it might be his best movie. That
Might?
or Men. That or Men.
Do you like the alien?
The what?
Do you like the alien in it?
Um, I do think the way he uses the alien is interesting. Where
I really like how he talked about it in that Lex Friedman show.
yeah, where it is sort of just he wanted it to be as abstract and out of human perspective as possible. It once you put rules on it, human rules, it makes it less alien. It needs to be the weirdest. He has no fucking clue what it's doing or why it's there. And I think that works better with what it's saying on reflecting onto her tragedy and sort of moving on from her heartbreak and issues into a clone of herself. You know, I think that works, and a lot of the visual elements of it do work.
I heard an interesting take about how Annihilation is about the self-destructive traits that we have.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I feel that's
that
very
makes
on the nose throughout the movie to me.
Yeah, see, for some reason in for me, I thought it was more about how the people and our environment change us, like for the better or worse.
Well, that's an aspect. Yeah,
Yeah. It's
it
like
all comes
that's what
together in
played
that.
bigger part in my mind.
Okay.
I don't like the story of Annihilation.
Yeah, me neither.
It's
Not really.
yeah,
I
no,
only like. I think it's the only good thing about it is the visual aspect. I think a lot of the alien creatures are very interesting and beautiful in a kind of way.
the flowers
And
look wonderful.
yeah,
Oh,
everything about it kind of looks really fantastical and beautiful. And I
wait,
like a lot of the abstract stuff
the
and
the
the abstract look of the alien itself, but the plot itself is I'm so torn on this movie because I don't know how to interpret it all. I don't know how because it the self-destruction stuff, it doesn't push hard enough. It doesn't push hard enough the allegories of each of the characters. It doesn't show a lot of the little internal struggles. And that's where I thought things were going to really go in that direction where they were kind of going to be. I thought that was the reason that they were all women, right? Where it was an all women expedition was that they would be more expressive because, whatever, girls or whatever, that kind of thing. And it never really strongly went in that direction. It seemed like more of I don't know, it seemed like it was going down the rabbit hole like Alice or something like that. And it's all right in that way. I guess the self-destruction stuff, it was there, it was surface level. I get it. 100%, it's self-destruction. It's about like regret for her and all that kind of stuff, but it doesn't really.
The
I
story
don't know.
does get a little goofy with them just like, yeah, now you can go in with everyone. You could just volunteer to go in, and it's not as prepared, and it's
yeah
very low key scale that you would
I-
expect compared to. Which that's the weird aspect. It feels a lot of the military and science impact of it feels very low scale, even though Annihilation after Ex Machina was a huge hit. This was like a major studio budget. This wasn't
Mhm.
A24 anymore. This was Paramount, and this was his largest budget movie. But Paramount dropped it which is the weird aspect because the producer had a final cut on the movie. So this was exactly Alex Garland's vision. It wasn't changed studio wise. But the studio, Paramount, went to him and said, "You got to cut this. This is too convoluted. This is too confusing. People aren't going to like this or get it." And then once he wasn't willing, they said, "Okay, fuck it. We're not releasing it in theaters anymore. We're dropping it same day, theaters and Netflix. We're selling it to Netflix same day." And it killed it at the box office because of that. It failed bad. Then he had to go back to A24 because of Men, because no studio wanted to work with him. But what about it was convoluted to me? Like, I don't get it. I don't get what the studio thought people wouldn't understand about Annihilation.
It wasn't horribly convoluted in any sort of way.
I-
Everything was kind of contained in their own little world and that kind of thing. And
yeah,
I understood the framing cuts where they had after the whole thing where she's doing the interview with the people, and then they had the before
Hmm.
cuts of when she's cheating and that kind of thing. That made sense to me. Uh, but I don't know. I
Yeah,
See,
don't know if we get a conclusion to the self-destruction sort of bit. I don't know if we get like the feeling that her regret is resolved in some sort of way. Just a mirror of what she is, and that's not satisfying to me in any sort of way, and it doesn't really speak to the allegory at all, in my opinion.
yeah, and I think I this is the movie where when in Carlos, you listened to that Lex Friedman show, you'd
not
remember
all
that
of it.
in the first
Mhm.
15 minutes he says the most interesting thing humans do is science, not art. And I
Uh-huh.
think that line and him talking about that alone, combined with Annihilation, shows to me through consistency he finds the the metaphor more interesting of like the science reflecting the science aspects of the duplication of the cell splitting, reflecting on the metaphor of just moving on and just like removing that of you and improving into a second version of herself. I think that's where I start to go, okay, I get that he doesn't want to dive deeper into that. I don't think he'd find, because I think if he was more fascinated with art and he thinks art is the greatest thing that humans can do, which that would be my perspective. If he believed that more, I think when you look at the human perspective, you want to dive deeper. I think that's what people who enjoy art to way more.
Yeah, you'd want to dive deeper into the expression of what they're actually feeling in that point where it's like, is the regret, does she feel that regret, and they leave it ambiguous as to whether or not it's just the alien itself where she has the shimmer in her eyes, right? They leave it ambiguous, and that works and doesn't work in a lot of ways.
But
It
the reason I think this and Men work best for me of any of his works is because when he gets too over the top with that stuff, these both I watch and I could just sort of look at it as more of a surface level experience. I can watch Annihilation and be like, okay, they're doing this, they're doing that. I don't have to at times. I'm like, I get it. I just watch what they're doing. It's more face level to me. Carlos, you enjoyed Annihilation more this time around, right?
I
So,
did. I was
what
impressed.
aspects did you enjoy more, and why do you think it improved for you?
What? I guess the first time I watched it, I felt like the visual effects were a little bit much. I was kind of
Really, I liked it.
yeah, surprisingly. I don't know why. Especially I guess especially the alien in that part of the movie, I was like it just turned me off. Low key, maybe I was what the studio believed the average consumer would be because I was a little bit confused. I wasn't sure how to interpret the alien the first time I watched it, and so it kind of lost me at that point and negatively impacted the rest of the movie.
Mm.
Um but overall I like the story more. Like I still don't think it's very good, but the first time around it wasn't clicking for me.
Hmm. Yeah, I can agree with that. It didn't click too much. Matt, you felt meh about it. You didn't hate it. Did you thought?
I don't know how to feel about it, man. I don't know how to feel about it.
See, I
I think I'd
kind
have to
of
go for a second watch to understand, to really get it. But
I
other than that, I don't know what you saw wrong about the aliens and stuff. I think it's like it looks visually interesting, and it's
Oh
supposed to
yeah,
look like
this time
it's
I
supposed to look
agree.
like a primordial being, in my opinion. And it kind of reminds me of, like, how like fungus kind of
Hmm.
grows on rocks. That's kind of what it reminded me of. It kind of,
I
how
think
it's like a, Have you played Terraria? You know
Yeah,
that
but
the biome where it has like a, you know when you not the corruption, but the other biome.
oh wait, I do.
Yeah, where they have like the unicorns and stuff. That's kind of what it reminded me of, and that kind of made it click a little bit for me. I liked it in that way.
Yeah, so I
When
fuck, I completely lost what I was gonna say. But I do just want to say something about Annihilation that I really like this time going around is the flowers that look like people.
oh yeah,
I
that's
think
good.
its main character goes they've grown this way or something, like she just observes them and nobody regards it, like nobody's like no shit Sherlock, like it was such a stupid line to say.
Well, there's stuff like that where she's a professor and they're like at a science, they're at John Hopkins University, and the first scene, she's explaining basic like science that you would get in high school about cells dividing and shit. And it's like, there's moments with like that where it's like, they would know this. Come on, they would know this. You don't need to say this aloud right now. They know how cells divide. At fucking
It was a
Science.
John.
101 class, bro. How do you
Science.
know?
Yeah. Right after Annihilation was his show Devs. Any of you
I
watch
didn't
that?
I didn't watch the 6.5 hours of that, unfortunately.
Me neither. I watched about one episode. When it came out, I watched one episode in 2020, and it just didn't work for me. I was like, whatever, moving on. Because at the time, I hated Annihilation because it just felt too much, and it was the same thing with the show. And then we move on to Men, which we've discussed a decent amount, but this was his low budget. This is his movie to get back into making big budget movies. It's pretty simple of a movie. Not like in the story aspects, but production wise, it's just it's overseas. There's good spooks there. I feel jump scared at a lot of points in there, and it works really well at those points. And we've kind of talked about how the metaphor of it is kind of vague, can be interpreted both
Yeah,
ways.
she could be the victim or she could be the victimizer in that.
Well,
that
I
case.
think it's
There's a serious argument for both.
I think it's both in the story wise. I think it's there's the aspect of her boyfriend who died, her husband.
Yeah, killed himself.
Yeah, I think there's aspects of that when he returns. He discusses, "You made me this way," and when she is
Old.
when she is giving birth in the kind of weird scene, I see that I see that has his insight on how the gender relationship between men and women could lead to sort of a abusive and useful, like using each other as utility. Men could be formed into that way from the improper relationship with a woman, and it's kind of a balance of gender to gender, femininity to masculinity from my perspective. I wouldn't say it's like an anti-feminist movie, and I wouldn't say it's a feminist movie, but I think it goes in depth and how we form each other into these sort of common abusive relationships, the misery that woman, and how has a relationship back and forth.
It's weird that you cited or you sympathize with the abuser.
Well, I think you're supposed to partially sympathize with him because a part of it is their relationship.
But he's so manipulative. Like
It's
I'm
not.
not very
It's not.
good at seeing manipulation, I
Or
feel
he's
like.
expressive.
No,
Well, I wouldn't
because
say he's in that situation. He is manipulative, but
dude, yeah, he fucking hits her and then he's like, "You made me like this," and then he kills himself. That's manipulative. Just
What? How's that manipulating? Manipulating is like going for an end goal. He's actually just he's
yeah,
scared
his
and afraid, and he's actually feeling those things, so he kills himself because he feels like he can't recover his relationship, so he kills himself. He overreacts and he kills himself
yeah, I
because
don't
he's
know.
feeling bad things. So you can see her as the victimizer and him as also being the victimizer. It's a two-sided allegory.
once you hit a woman, I don't sympathize with you.
He kills himself. He's dead. He doesn't get to manipulate anymore. He doesn't get to exist anymore. He dies for his relationship. And how you could possibly see that as not being balanced in between the two people is beyond me. It's like the most feminist, like I can't see eye to eye with men at all kind of argument. He
Yeah,
dies.
kind of. I mean,
They
I just,
visually show it.
I
as
don't know
brutal
if
as
I would
possible.
necessarily say that it wasn't manipulative there, but I do think it's supposed to show how their relationship, unhealthy ways, both impacted them into different levels. And I do. What do you think, Carlos? Because you strong. I would say I'm more in between both of you. You would say it's strongly more feminist, but like with the pregnancy, this is the complaint everyone has about the pregnancy. It's too much. It's people hate this movie. They think is real. This movie was hated by feminist groups for being very whatever. The interpreting femininity wrong and shit. That's a lot of the criticisms. What do you think of that pregnancy scene? Because that's the part everyone talks about and they hate and they say it's so forced and just too much. It's a parody of A24. What do you think?
shit, you could say those things. They might be valid things to say, but I think that if you want to look at this movie as a piece of art, then you can easily interpret it in a number of ways
Yeah.
that fit. I think it works. It's really off-putting and jarring.
Okay, but so what is your interpretation though? Because that's fair. You can interpret any movies has their media literacy. Media literacy is the thing people keep saying, but realistically, you should be able to interpret it anyway. But if you say to
Yeah.
me Barbie is Nazi propaganda, I don't care about your opinion. So
You
like,
just have to argue it, right?
I just want to know like if what you view
Okay.
that has in the metaphor, Carlos.
I-
It's the worst thing that you could feel about anybody's opinion.
Hold on,
like totally kills it. I'm sorry.
I
You can
want to
go.
hear what Carlos thinks with the birth.
I think the birth is kind of representative of the cycles of abuse because so the Green Man is a Celtic symbol for spring and the rebirth cycle of the year.
I
Fucking and so just kind of with how the movie plays out and the negative interaction she has with men throughout it and the like birth of these characters.
that came from her.
Yeah.
So what do you like? What do you think of that in itself? That they literally come from her in the story wise of the movie. Like, what do you think that says about her abusive relationship with them?
It
Well,
clicked.
shit. I didn't think that deeply about it.
It clicked. It clicked.
No.
There's two sides to it.
No,
There's two sides.
but I mean, yeah, I guess that is part like well the thing with the thing with anything is that when you focus on it, it becomes the biggest thing. And so that, like you said, it comes from her, and that I'm going to choose to interpret it as she's making these problems for herself from like over analyzing and being
Paranoid. And
overly concerned. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like
There are moments
feel
where the men doesn't actually do anything to
Yeah.
her, but she's
yeah.
mad.
There are moments where there is like a threat, an implied threat, or like an actual threat. But then there are moments that are neutral, but the setting of the movie makes them seem negative. And seeing that play out, having you ask that question was really good for me because my brain's working on this. And yeah, I think it does make sense for me that it is representative of how like we can choose how things affect us and we can choose to get over them because she was like still carrying the weight of her husband that killed himself and he was the last.
Well, he did just kill
If
himself,
if
but
if you
just
remember
then.
in a lot of the implied threat scenes, she never ever in the entire movie gets hurt. And in fact, I believe
Well, until
I'm
the
trying to
third
remember it.
act, until the third act when he actually starts hurting her and stabbing her and
Well,
whatnot. But that's when it
she
kind
was
of gets
also the one.
weird.
She was also the one doing the stabbing. If I'm doing this from memory, I haven't seen it recently. She does the stabbing first of him.
Yes, but to
when
be
she's
fair,
in-
he's a naked man trying to break into her house. I would
Mhm.
say that's
It's
justified. Stab him.
I'm sorry. Is this like some right wing propaganda that I'm hearing right now? Self defense laws?
It's a naked. Well, okay, so I want to share my interpretation of the birth. Um, a lot of people don't like that, which again is consistent with what I'm saying. The third act with Alex Garland, it goes radically intense and self-indulgent. But I kind of like it here because I got to see it in theaters, and it was such a theatrical visual. It worked, and I think that's what worked about Annihilation too. It is self-indulgent and too much, and not pursuing the right threads of the story with Annihilation. But it's so visually pleasing that I doesn't bug me when it comes to Annihilation and Men. But with the birth scene, the interpretation I view is it's showing the cycle of unhealthy dynamics between masculinity and femininity. Because she has every right to be scared, considering she just got out of an abusive relationship who literally just killed himself. So she has every right to be scared of the men throughout the movie, even though they're not doing anything wrong. So they're not doing anything wrong for the most part. But sure, every right to be scared. She's fucked up after all that. And when it comes to the birth, I think it's showing sort of the relationship between mom and son, in the sense that a mom who experiences negative issues with masculinity can sometimes breed that into a man with being neurotic or paranoid like she is, because the men become that because that's what she suspects. So my perspective is that the man abusing her caused her to make another abusive man by I'm trying to not necessarily like blaming her, but like it's just a cycle back and forth of her relationship with men negatively due to another man. So in a way, the man did that to the other man to make him into that threat. But you get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I 100%
So it's a
get.
cycle. It's a cycle between the
Yeah.
relationship. But I would say probably after watching all of these Alex Garland movies, he has some real issues with women, and maybe if he should go,
Maybe center it around some male characters for once.
maybe
Maybe figure that out first.
hey, maybe if you have mommy issues, make Beau is Afraid instead.
Yeah, maybe make Bo's afraid.
Yeah,
That
stop
was a
making
little bit.
like 6 movies in a row just about how you have bad relationship with femininity, and
Is that what you think it is saying?
I think most of them are just like
I
almost
think it's
coping
like
mechanisms for his
Yeah.
relationships with women.
Oh, okay.
Because I'm not used to the perspective of a woman being so miserable and abused, and like that's all he seems to view femininity as. That is
Just
what people say.
crying and it's like
Ex Machina is
there's
about how a man is treating her as discarded. Annihilation's about a woman self-destructing. Men is about a woman being terrified due to her abusive relationship. It's like there's positive things about being a woman too.
Like getting on the cock carousel?
Yep. There we go. Stripping at strip clubs. Being a sex worker.
Hey, I could be a sex worker.
So he has one
Trying
last
on
movie.
pretty clothes and shopping.
Just girly things.
Hey, he did show them doing that in Civil War. They tried on clothes and shopping together.
Shopping.
Yeah, because they were in a normal place.
Women be shopping.
I think
they
that
be
was
trying on
not
clothes.
interesting.
And they're like, fuck you for trying on that hat. You look ugly in that hat, you son of a bitch.
oh my
No, it
god,
was so funny.
that guy bugged the shit out of me though. Because
What?
I
okay,
mean,
his
there's parts where I didn't understand what he said, so that was another issue.
I didn't think his accent was that bad, but to go from one scene where he's like crying and literally screaming and because his friend just got shot and died, and then he's in the White House, and then his closer friend just got shot, and he's just like, I need a quote from the president.
It's like vengeance.
It was very off-putting to me.
Oh, I thought it played with his character.
Bipolar as fuck.
Yeah.
What? Literally, get sad, get drunk, get happy, get angry. Isn't that the cycle?
No, that's the cycle of mania, where you have the extreme depressive moments, and then you have the high point mania kind of stuff, where you feel like extremely excited and willing to do everything. You know, like you could take on the world.
Yeah, but I know bipolar people.
That's mania, though. I'm just describing mania.
Yeah, I very very much not how this character's portrayed, but
He is all over the place, but that's expected with war. Hey, I was looking at Civil War credits, and Jesse Plemons is credited as white nationalist in the credits.
oh, see, I guess
But some of the bodies were white.
doesn't play.
Some of the bodies were white, though.
They were all civilians.
Yeah, I don't know why that. I didn't see it as a white supremacist thing.
I think it's just the sunglasses. That's why.
Yeah.
Yeah, was he wearing pit vipers?
No, it was the Heart's sunglasses, and he was going like, "Oh, you're from that." He didn't shoot the Florida guy.
Well,
he didn't shoot the Florida guy.
True. Yeah, but he shot the Asian people. He didn't shoot the white people.
Because he was from Hong Kong. It seems like a nationalist thing more than a.
Well, yeah, I mean, I don't. He was loyalist. Jesse Plemons was loyalist to the president.
Was he?
Yes, because he was saying Colorado and Missouri, which is loyalist states, which is on the United States of America.
But, gotcha.
And I think it's kind of, I don't know. It's weird because they're like, oh, we disbanded the FBI. And it's like, who would like, I don't know.
Disband the FBI, so you only have the fucking covert intel network.
He explicitly said, though, at like the premiere, he chose to have the Western Alliance be both Florida and Texas because he wanted.
Florida's against Texas. You mean California?
No, I'm sorry. California and Texas be together because they're so politically different that they'd be fighting against like a dictator, basically.
Yeah, so would a dictator disband the FBI?
Yeah.
Really? Okay.
I don't know. Maybe. I really can't see. I think it was like deep state. I don't know. It doesn't make any sense. They didn't try to world build. They just tried to, make it the most surface level Civil War stuff. I guess.
Well, at least we know what a British man thinks war in the U.S. would look like.
Yeah, that's what I saw people say.
It's super bright and it's all nice and woodlands and it's all lit up and all the cities they have power and water and everything.
Oh yeah, there were points where it was like a desolate city, the city where JCPenney is like destroyed, towers are like nuked, and then at night they have like street lights on. And I'm like
tons
what?
Of street lights and it like office buildings are lit up for some reason.
If this city's shut down, I think the first thing they would do if the whole city's just like a wasteland, the power would probably go down.
Yeah.
Telegram, Morgan.
Okay. What
does it say?
What does it say?
Can you read that out?
Well, we're heading towards the end of the pod anyways. We're about an hour 50 in. Carlos is remodeling his room, or his bathroom. So, I guess you guys got anything you want to, final thoughts on Alex Garland as a whole?
I don't like his name.
He only gets better.
I mean, he's got one movie left, supposedly. Something called Warfare, so maybe he's on the war kick right now.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, hey, we have
This
a.
time it'll be Ukraine that he talks about and doesn't vaguely make a position on.
He's writing 28 years later, which, that's getting a cinematic universe now, so
When is he
that's.
gonna
Oh,
write
man.
another book? Why didn't we talk about his books, guys?
Do you read? I don't
He
read.
has books?
Yeah, he started as a writer. That's actually. He
Um,
wrote a book called The Beach, which did very well.
Wait, The Beach, the one with Leo DeCap?
Yeah,
Yeah.
so that's how he started getting into filmmaking. He wrote The Beach, the book,
Dude, The
and
Beach
then
is so
he
good.
wrote the book, and then Danny Boyle, who directed the movie, he loved the book. He wanted to make a movie, and then he talked to Alex Garland from writing the book. He's like, "Could you write a zombie movie for me?" And then they did 28 Days Later.
Secretly, my whole life I've been an Alex Garland fan because I watched The Beach when like that shit came out.
That was like '94. What are you talking about?
I watched that shit when I gained consciousness,
I
cognition.
saw that when I was seen in the womb, baby.
Not even Matthew.
Are you guys excited for a 28 blank later cinematic universe?
Yeah, that's pretty hype, honestly.
They're doing
I'm
a
excited to put more petroleum jelly on my face, baby.
they're doing more they're doing a spin-off movie with the director of Captain Marvel too.
I want to be pure.
Okay,
Hey, we have
Danny.
a X account down below where I say Twitter bait to try and get us money from blue check mark shit.
Blue check marks.
So follow that. I'm tweeting about how I shit on David Lynch recently.
Mm.
I got retweeted from a bigger profile with when I said Tubi is the closest thing to a video store in 2024. So that's
Okay.
cool. So follow that, like, subscribe, comment. Yeah, fuck Alex Garland. No, I like him. I want him to continue enough where because all of his movies are interesting enough. But I just, man, it was a rough week to watch all of his movies. There needs to be more space in between his movies for me because his fallacies get repetitive at a certain point for me.
Yeah.
Anyways, it was nice talking to you, boys.
Yeah.
Nice pod,
Like, subscribe,
everybody.
and follow on Discord and fucking.
I'll try and cut the argument to make it listenable. Not
What?
like remove it. Well, because there was like a solid 2.5 minutes of us just screaming over each other. We gotta like cut it down a little bit where it's not just where it's listenable. I don't mind the arguing. The arguing's fine. I
was genuinely frustrated.
Me
with you
too.
because you were showing images from like when it was like just when the movie was just like being talked about initially, like when it was in
But
development
it was the right
stages.
image. It just was a different name for the territories. I didn't realize the Western Forces is what they called California. Because initially they
Yeah.
announced the Western Forces was the other.
Yeah, that was a frustration because in the movie itself they say like the Western forces are California and Texas, and I was like, yeah, okay,
So
that
kind
makes
of, I
sense.
don't even know what's the point of the other areas, and because they're not in the
Yeah, they
movie at all.
don't explain it
I
at
don't
all.
get why
It
they
doesn't
wouldn't
make any
just make it
sense.
into one other area, I guess. But
I don't fucking know. I I don't fucking know. Why don't they just have it just be like California and Texas fighting them? I don't know. The big
Well,
states. You could call them big boys. They could probably do it.
hey, why would the president be under the Oval Office desk? I don't think that's where he would hide. If they're in,
Yeah, I think he has a bunker or something.
I,
Send off the nuclear
whatever.
fucking missiles. Just
Alex Garland doesn't know he's not American.
He doesn't understand anything about America. He doesn't get anything.
Yeah, he's never seen a bunker before. They
He's
don't
never
have
been
them
to.
out there.
He doesn't understand that war is actually very dirty and gritty, and there's like fucking dust every. That was the disturbing. That was the weird part about like this whole movie was when they were doing like that siege on DC. There was no dust being kicked up at all. And
True.
if you've ever seen like a war torn like city, there's so
They were
much
getting really
fucking
good,
dust.
clean photos. They're
Yeah,
like, "Ooh,
there's
White House."
if you've seen like war footage like from Ukraine or Syria or basically anywhere, there's so much fucking dust when you like hit a building with like a rocket. And the fact that the helicopter was flying so low to the ground was like so jarring and weird to me.
Don't make
I thought
a.
that was so cool.
I did think
I
that was
said,
cool.
wow.
But maybe don't make a movie about. Maybe don't. If you don't want to make a war movie, don't make it called Civil War. That's my final thoughts.
What about Captain America Civil War?
God, I that one movie's worse.
What about the Marvel movies? What about 12 Years of Slave? You didn't like that one? What about
What the fuck?
Django Unslave?
Wait, what made you think of 12 Years of Slave?
Nothing.
Okay, we gotta end this. Let's like and subscribe.
Yeah.
I thought we were recording. I
thought we were gone.
Nope, still recording, but it was interesting enough. I'm gonna keep it in. Like and
You
subscribe.
milk it.
Comment down below.
Movies. Movies.